Hello and welcome to this episode of the Higher Education and Wellbeing Podcast, where we celebrate academia and bring education to everyone. You've reached out about finding a mentor, which is something a lot of academics are thinking about, especially as you're looking to navigate your career and make the most of your time in higher education.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought this up. We actually have an article here by Jared Canize titled, How to Find a Mentor, a Step-by-Step Guide with Tips. And while it's not specifically written for academics, the advice is surprisingly relevant.
That's what I thought too. I mean, it's all about personal and professional growth. And that's something everyone in academia is working towards, whether they're a professor, staff member, or even a graduate student.
Absolutely. What's fascinating is that the article starts by talking about self-reflection, which is so crucial when you're looking for a mentor. It's tempting to jump right into searching for someone, but taking the time to understand your own goals and needs first can really make all the difference.
Yeah, it makes sense when you put it that way. You wouldn't just pick any random person to be your mentor, right?
Right. In academia especially, you need to be strategic. Think about it. Are you looking for someone to help you navigate the tenure process? Someone who can give you feedback on your teaching? Or maybe someone to connect you with research collaborators? The type of mentor you need depends on what you're trying to achieve.
So how do you translate that self-reflection into actionable steps? I mean, the article talks about clarifying your personal goals, but what does that actually look like in the context of higher education?
That's a great question. It means asking yourself some tough but important questions. What are your aspirations? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? What are the specific skills or knowledge gaps you need to address to get there? And perhaps most importantly, what kind of mentorship style would best support your growth? Do you thrive on regular check-ins and detailed feedback? Or do you prefer more of a hands-off approach?
That last point is really interesting. It reminds me of all the different personalities you encounter in academia. You've got the highly structured professors who run their labs like a well-oiled machine. And then you have the more free-flowing types who encourage independent exploration.
Precisely. And aligning your own learning style and communication preferences with those of your mentor can make the relationship so much more productive and fulfilling. Imagine trying to work with a mentor who's incredibly detail-oriented when you thrive on big picture thinking. It could lead to a lot of frustration on both sides.
So once you've done that soul-searching, the next step, according to the article, is to actually start looking for potential mentors. It suggests things like company programs and role models, but those aren't exactly tailor-made for the academic world.
Right. That's where we need to get creative. Think about the unique ecosystems of higher education. You've got departmental structures, research labs, professional organizations, conferences, and even alumni networks. Each of these offers potential avenues for finding a mentor.
So it's not just about looking within your own department, right?
Exactly. I mean, you might find amazing mentors within your own department, but don't be afraid to think bigger. Conferences are a fantastic opportunity to connect with people from other institutions who share your research interests.
It's like speed dating for academics, but instead of looking for romance, you're looking for intellectual synergy.
That's a great way to put it. And don't underestimate the power of those informal connections you make over coffee breaks or poster sessions. Sometimes the most valuable mentorships come from unexpected places.
The article also talks about leveraging your personal network, which I think is particularly relevant in academia, where collaborations and connections are so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about the people you've met through your research teaching or even through committees or service work. You never know who might be a great mentor hiding in plain sight.
It's all about recognizing the potential for mentorship in those everyday interactions. It's not always about formal programs or titles.
Right. It could be a former professor who gave you incredible feedback on your dissertation, a colleague you admire for their grant writing skills, or even a senior staff member who's a master at navigating university politics.
So now we've identified some potential mentors. The next hurdle is actually reaching out to them. I imagine that can be quite daunting, especially for early career academics.
It's understandable to feel nervous, especially when you're approaching someone you admire. But here's where the article's advice about clarity and confidence comes in. Remember, you're not asking for a favor. You're proposing a mutually beneficial relationship.
I like that reframing. It takes the pressure off a bit. It's not about begging for guidance. It's about finding someone who's also interested in sharing their knowledge and experience.
Exactly. And being clear about your goals and what you hope to gain from the mentorship can make all the difference. For example, you could say, I'm really impressed with your work on them, and then mention a specific project or publication, and I'd love to learn more about how you approach, and then mention a specific skill or challenge you're facing.
That level of specificity shows you've done your homework. And you're not just sending out generic requests. It also demonstrates that you value their time and expertise.
Right. It's like showing up for a job interview prepared to talk about the company's mission and how your skills align with their needs. You wouldn't just walk in and say, tell me about this job. You'd want to demonstrate that you've put in the effort to understand what they're looking for.
That's a great analogy. It makes the whole process of approaching potential mentors seem less intimidating. So let's say you've made the ask and the potential mentor seems interested. What's next? How do you go about building and nurturing that relationship?
That's where the real work begins. The article emphasizes the importance of expressing gratitude and reassessing goals periodically, which are both crucial in academia.
Yeah, mentorship is definitely a two-way street. It's not just about receiving guidance. It's about actively participating in the relationship and contributing your own unique perspectives.
And what's fascinating here is how these principles translate to the academic world. Think about the power dynamics in academia. You often have senior faculty mentoring junior faculty or graduate students. It's essential to approach those relationships with respect and a willingness to learn, but also with a sense of agency.
You're not just there to passively absorb information, you're bringing your own experiences and insights to the table.
Exactly. And that's what makes mentorship in academia so enriching. It's a collaborative process of growth and discovery for both parties involved.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into mentorship. We've talked about the importance of self-reflection, the unique challenges and opportunities of finding a mentor in academia, and the art of making that initial connection. But there's still so much more to explore.
There is. In our next segment, we'll delve deeper into the dynamics of the mentor-mentee relationship, exploring how to nurture those connections, navigate challenges, and make the most of this invaluable resource in your academic journey. You know, one thing that really struck me in the article was the emphasis on communication, especially when it comes to navigating the nuances of a mentorship relationship in academia.
Yeah, that's a great point. We often talk about the importance of communication in academia, but it takes on a whole new dimension when you're talking about mentorship.
What's fascinating here is that the article talks about being upfront about your goals and the time commitment you're asking for, which is especially relevant when you're dealing with busy academics who are juggling research teaching and administrative responsibilities.
It's almost like you're pitching a collaboration, right? You need to make a compelling case for why this mentorship is a valuable use of their time and expertise.
Exactly. And being specific about what you're hoping to achieve can make all the difference. Instead of saying, I want to learn more about grant writing, you could say, I'm working on a grant proposal for, and then mention a specific funding opportunity, and I'd love to get your feedback on my approach.
That level of detail shows that you're serious and that you've put some thought into how this mentorship can benefit both of you.
Right. It also helps set realistic expectations from the outset. No mentor, no matter how experienced, can magically solve all your problems or transform your career overnight. It's a process that requires effort and commitment from both sides.
And speaking of commitment, the article also talks about the importance of expressing gratitude, which I think is often overlooked in the fast-paced world of academia.
It's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of publications, grants, and promotions that we forget to acknowledge the people who are supporting us along the way.
Oh, definitely. A simple thank you can go a long way.
Absolutely. And in academia, where relationships are so crucial, those small gestures of appreciation can really solidify a mentorship bond.
Yeah, it's not just about sending a thank you note after every meeting. It's about recognizing the value of their insights and showing that you're actively integrating their advice into your work.
It's like saying, I'm listening, I'm learning, and I'm applying what you've taught me.
The article also touches on the idea of reassessing goals periodically, which I think is particularly important in academia, where career paths can be unpredictable and often take unexpected turns.
Yeah, it's a great point. In academia, your mentorship needs might evolve as you progress through different stages of your career. As a graduate student, you might need someone to guide you through the dissertation process. But as you transition into a faculty role, you might need a different kind of mentor who can help you navigate the complexities of tenure and promotion.
So it's not about finding one mentor for life. It's about recognizing that your needs and goals will change and being open to seeking out new mentors who can support you at different points in your journey.
Exactly. And this is where the article's advice about networking and building relationships becomes so crucial. The more connections you make, the more likely you are to find mentors. who can provide the specific guidance and support you need at each stage of your career.
It's like building a personal board of advisors, each with their own expertise and perspective.
That's a great way to think about it. You might have one mentor who's a master at grant writing, another who's an expert in your specific research area, and yet another who excels at giving feedback on your teaching.
And just like any successful team, having a diverse range of perspectives can lead to more creative solutions and better outcomes.
Absolutely. It's also worth mentioning that mentorship doesn't always have to be a formal, structured relationship. Some of the most valuable mentorships arise organically from collaborations, shared interests, or even chance encounters.
It's about recognizing the potential for mentorship in those everyday interactions.
Right. It could be a colleague who offers helpful advice during a department meeting, a senior scholar you meet at a conference who shares their insights on publishing, or even a former student who's now working in a field you're interested in exploring.
Those informal connections can be just as impactful as those formal mentorships, sometimes even more so because they often arise from shared passions and mutual respect.
And speaking of mutual respect, it's important to remember that mentorship is a two-way street.
You're not just there to passively receive wisdom and guidance. You're bringing your own unique skills, perspectives, and experiences to the relationship.
What's fascinating here is that the article talks about mentorship being a dynamic process where both parties learn and grow from each other.
That's a great point. A good mentor is not someone who simply dictates advice or tells you what to do. They're someone who listens, challenges your assumptions, and helps you discover your own path.
And as a mentee, it's important to be proactive. Come to meetings prepared with questions, and be open to feedback, even if it's not always what you want to hear.
Yeah, that can be tough, especially in academia, where we're often so invested in our work, it's hard to separate our egos from our research or teaching.
But that's where a good mentor can really make a difference. They can help you see your blind spots, challenge you to think differently, and ultimately help you become a more effective scholar and teacher.
It's like having an experienced guide who can help you navigate the often treacherous terrain of academia, pointing out potential pitfalls and celebrating your successes along the way.
And remember, mentorship is not just about career advancement. It's also about personal growth, resilience, and finding your voice in the academic community.
It's about building confidence, developing your leadership skills, and ultimately finding fulfillment in your work.
We've covered a lot of ground in this segment, from the importance of clear communication to the evolving nature of mentorship needs throughout an academic career. But there's one more aspect we need to explore: the benefits of being a mentor.
That's a great point. We've been focusing on the mentee's perspective, but it's important to remember that mentorship is a mutually beneficial relationship.
In our next segment, we'll delve into the rewards of mentorship, exploring why seasoned academics choose to invest their time and energy in guiding the next generation of scholars.
We've talked a lot about the benefits of having a mentor, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the other side of the equation. What motivates experienced academics to take on the role of a mentor? It's not like they have a surplus of free time, right?
It's true, academics are notoriously busy. But what's fascinating is that many seasoned scholars find mentoring to be incredibly rewarding, both personally and professionally.
So it's not just about altruism or paying it forward.
Yeah.
There's something in it for them, too.
Exactly. Mentoring can actually be a source of intellectual renewal and professional growth, even for someone who's been in the field for decades.
That's interesting. How does that work?
Well, think about it. When you're explaining concepts to a mentee, answering their questions, and helping them think through challenges, you're forced to revisit your own assumptions and approach familiar problems from a fresh perspective.
It's like you're constantly learning and rediscovering the passion for your field through their eyes.
Right. And as a mentor, you're often exposed to new ideas, research trends, and even different ways of thinking, especially if your mentee is working on cutting-edge projects or coming from a different disciplinary background.
So it's not just about giving advice, it's about staying intellectually engaged and stimulated by those interactions.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the personal satisfaction of seeing someone you've mentored succeed. Witnessing their growth, their breakthroughs, their contributions to the field, it can be incredibly rewarding.
It's like watching your academic offspring flourish and make their mark on the world.
That's a great analogy. And on a more practical level, mentoring can enhance your own reputation and network within the academic community.
Makes sense. If your mentee is presenting at conferences, publishing papers, and generally making a name for themselves, people are going to notice who they're working with and acknowledge your role in their success.
It's a way of leaving a lasting legacy, not just through your own work, but through the impact you have on others.
So if you're a senior academic listening to this, and you're wondering whether you have the time or the energy to mentor someone, remember that it's not just about giving back to the community. It's about investing in your own growth and finding fulfillment in shaping the next generation of scholars.
And if you're someone who's hesitant to reach out to a potential mentor because you feel like you don't have much to offer in return, think again.
What do you mean?
Your enthusiasm, your curiosity, your willingness to learn and contribute, these are all valuable assets to a mentor.
It's not about having all the answers or being a finished product. It's
Yeah.
about being open to learning and growing alongside your mentor.
Exactly. And remember, the most successful mentorships are those built on mutual respect, shared interests, and a genuine desire to learn from each other.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into mentorship, what are some key takeaways you'd like our listener to remember as they embark on their own mentorship journey?
Well, first and foremost, remember that mentorship is an investment worth making. Whether you're seeking guidance or offering it, it's a powerful force for growth, both personally and professionally. And it can enrich your experience in academia in countless ways.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all proposition. The type of mentor you need will evolve as you progress through your career. So be open to seeking out different types of mentorship relationships at different stages of your journey.
Don't be afraid to reach out to people you admire, even if they seem out of your league. You never know who might be open to connecting and sharing their insights.
And remember, mentorship is a two-way street. Be prepared to contribute your own unique perspectives, ask thoughtful questions, and be open to feedback, even if it's challenging.
Most importantly, approach mentorship with a sense of curiosity, enthusiasm, and a genuine desire to learn and grow.
That's great advice. And before we sign off, I just want to remind our listeners that if you're looking for opportunities in higher education, be sure to check out academicjobs.com.
They have a fantastic selection of positions from faculty to staff roles at institutions all over the world.
It's a great resource for exploring different career paths and finding your next adventure in the world of academia.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of mentorship.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you. And until next time, keep celebrating academia and bringing education to everyone.